Simployer TV is back, and we are live at the Oslo Business Forum conference, Digital Leadership. And I'm here with you, Nancy Giordano, and you talk a lot about, you have the title futuristic?
A strategic futurist.
Yeah, tough word, but how is it to think forward all the time and see the future?
Yeah, sometimes it's great. Once in a while it's frustrating because you start to live in the future. Like in my world, it's already there, right? And when you're in the real world once in a while, and that there's still a real lag between like how a hospital processes a bill or waiting in line for something, it is a little annoying. But it's great. It's really, to me, it's very comforting to be able to look around the corner and have a sense of where it's going.
But I think every business leader and manager try as best they can to look into the future and be prepared. Are they prepared enough, or do they need to do something?
But again, I have empathy for the fact that they're also managing business right now, right? And customer needs and all the infrastructure that goes inside the organization, inside the business. So it's hard to separate yourself from that and really move beyond. I think it is important, though, to build that capacity for curiosity and for assessing all the assumptions that we have about what's currently working and what's not working, right? So to really be open to dismantling something that isn't working anymore. And that's, I think, the harder part. So it's not so much about paying attention, it's about understanding the implications and building the mindset to shift it.
But there's something about not knowing what you know that you don't know. But how do you dare? You say about being brave.
Audacious,
yeah.
Right?
How do you do this? How do you fit this into your daily routine?
It's funny because at the same time that technology is increasing or emerging or taking shape, there's also this interesting consciousness that is. This whole idea about self-awareness and understanding who you are under duress, in ambiguity, in moments that you aren't sure, is an important part of leadership and in general humanness these days. And we have to get more comfortable being in a space in which we don't know. And being, and again, understanding what our normal default patterns are, which is that we start to get defensive or we start to get this and start to move beyond those and just realize that the world is shifting, change that you won't know. But there's something that you're bringing to it. And that's why when I work with youth, there's a lot about understanding their own personality superpowers. So when they walk into a situation that feels unknown, they know that there's something to draw from. And so I think that that's part of the capacity building, right? It's not just about understanding how AI works, it's also about understanding how you process and how you work.
But this can be a lot to take in, that I need to be aware of this, I need to think about the current, I need to think about the future, and the past is lagging along as well. How is leadership affected for someone who needs to be on top of things?
Well, we'll talk about it, in the keynote that I am fortunate to be able to give soon, but there is this, we're living in the state of permanent ambiguity, and partly it's recognizing that and understanding that and making peace with that. But there are strategic capacities that people are using or tools that people are building. So whether it's on the rise of design thinking and having a process to be able to innovate in a more constrained way and get feedback really quickly. It's not about this long research and development process anymore. It's about understanding how a minimum viable product really works, which is that you start with a skateboard that goes into a scooter, that goes to a bike, that goes to a car, that goes to a race car. So there's something that we're providing that offers utility at every step, but you learn with each step and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's about having more diverse, environments and in terms of age, ethnicity, gender, background, curiosities, et cetera, that build a more well-rounded team. I mean, there are strategies, right? You can start to manage this stuff if you just do it differently than you've done it before.
There's something about having strategies, something about following them and getting there. And for example, the workforce. You have a current workforce. How do you bring the people you have into that future? Is it possible at all?
There's two schools of thought. One, which is that we take the current workforce and we try and upskill that current workforce so that they are, able to meet the demands of the future and are able to participate in a current structure. I think there's another way of thinking about it that goes beyond it, that the whole world of work will change completely, and whether or not we will still be working for companies the way that we currently do, or whether or not we will be either much more independent or in a societal structure in which we are incentivized to go after the things we're really passionate about and add value from that, but not in a traditional work paid for by other, have health insurance kind of way. I can imagine a completely different way in which we are still very productive people and very inspired people, but in a totally different structure.
But this, you're touching into it, but it's a big question. But what is the key to understanding the future of work?
To me, I separate the future of work from the future of working. So the future of work is what will work look like, the actual structure of work. The terms of will we have more jobs, will we have less jobs, what will societies the construct of work look like? The future of working is how will we work? How do we coordinate? How do we spend our time? What are the environments that we're in? So partly it's just decoupling those two things and having a sort of a thoughtful conversation about each. The future of working, I do think, is going to be more remote, more collaborative. Again, tools are going to be a really big part of being able to integrate our work more effectively and be able to take out a lot of the inefficiency that exists and some of the frustrations that exist, some of the exhaustion that exists, and be able to free us up to be much more dynamic in how it is that we coordinate and think and build together. So I can kind of look at it across both those domains.
But how much do we have to take that in, perspective with us? Do you think something we should think about every day, or is it enough something we can just keep in the strategies?
It's an interesting line of questioning, so I'm going to push back on you, Cornelia. So all the questions right now are a little defensive, and I would say, isn't it exciting that we get to think about this stuff every day? Isn't it exciting that we get to imagine how we get to reinvent work? Isn't it cool that we can think about how we could do things differently, and that we could dismantle current systems? So I think often when we look at the future, we're biased toward all the stuff that's changing and think of that as bad. I have a matrix that I use with teams sometimes about sort of the 4 emotions that we have about the future. What am I relieved by, inspired by, frustrated by, or fearful of? Kind of like a SWOT analysis. I call it a RIF analysis. And it's interesting that we often, when we go through and start to talk about all the things that are changing in the future and we map it, we're biased toward the things that we're frustrated by or fearful of, and not necessarily giving enough credit to the stuff that we're really excited about and inspired by. And there's a lot of things that we can feel really, really good about. I can connect with anybody I want on the planet, right? I can imagine like doing this, I can reach out literally to almost anyone. I can build a community in almost any way. I have infinite connection to knowledge in a way that we never did before. I mean, there's so much stuff we can build with and build from. So I do think it's about holding a really optimistic and possible place of all this, and then it gets exciting to go do that. Then it doesn't feel exhausting, right? So then it's empowering.
So the most important thing we can do, all of us, at work and elsewhere, is stay positive and welcome the future.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny, I run around, I pulled out this little necklace the other day before coming here, Wonder, but I do think being in a state of wonder and being in a state of appreciation for that and being in a state of compassion with each other as we're working our way through it are probably the things that are most relevant. And then developing a sense of agency, that we can actually go do something. We are designing the future. It's not being designed for us. We get to design it.
Thank you so much, Nancy Giordano. And we will be back from Simployer Studio very shortly.